Hi viewers, my name is Rod Hadfield and we're here at my workshop here in Castlemaine with the Bumper to Bumper guys, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Ever since I was a child, I've loved automobiles. My father drove a V8 Dodge with big old shiny wheels. To him it was just transport with little to endear, but that old car would set the course for me throughout the year. Bumper to bumper, we love them old cars, be it Ford or GM or be it a Mopar. People, power and passion, you know that is our deal. So tune into our TV show with Rusty at the wheel. Is your wallet empty? Are you broke all the time? On that classic car of yours, you're spending your last dime. Your wife don't understand it, she's threatening to leave. If she took your car with her, you know you're gonna grieve. Bumper to bumper, we love them old cars, be it Ford or GM or be it a Mopar. People, power and passion, you know that is our deal. So tune into our TV show with Rusty at the wheel. Oh, yeah.
So the first part of the interview that I'd like to do is actually understand your life in general, about starting off at the farm, working in the dairy farm, but your desire to want to play with motors, experiment and go through that, and how that's carried you through your life to where you are today, because you've pushed the boundary in so many areas. And to be honest, I think that you're a living legend for the hot rod scene, but also in the classic car scene in general. So when did it all start for you?
Well, it all started back on the farm. My father had a 35 Ford Roadster utility, and I was always fascinated by the whole thing. It was an old car with wire wheels and a canvas roof, and it just fascinated me. And when I went to school in Echuca for a year up there, I was sitting in a barber shop reading an American hot rod book, and suddenly there was a 35 Ford done up with all the chrome front axle and painted wheels and beautiful upholstery, and I thought, geez, that's exactly the same vehicle as my dad's got. Wow, does that look good? So that's where it all started, and I started riding around Echuca in those days. Every second backyard had an old car wrecked in it.
Yeah.
Everything was converted to run a saw bench or run a pump or something. It was all made up. I'll never forget the fact that there was a 32 Ford Tourer just sitting on the side of the road, just about for the taking.
Yeah.
So I started looking at these different cars and different models and different grills, and this car had 18-inch wheels, and this model had 17-inch wheels, and this model had 15-inch wheels, and I started learning the difference between them all. Some of them had mechanical shockers on it and tubular shockers, and all these parts amazed me. Everything Ford made is beautiful. It's, when you look at it, it's got beauty. You can look at other models and they've made the thing just to do the job, but Ford went that extra mile. They were beautiful cars. And I started thinking, I could build something like this American, because there was T-model buckets in the American book and everything.
Yeah.
I asked the barber, could I take that book?
All right.
And I kept that book as a reference. I went round and I started collecting what they call dog bones. That's the radiator cap that spins around and it's got the temperature gauge in it. That fascinated me, and I reckon I had 30 of those things that I'd collected from backyards when the neighbours, when the owner wasn't home. And I started collecting all these parts, and I was boarding in Echuca And I started bringing all these parts home. I'll never forget walking across the Moama Bridge with one of my friends at the front of the chassis and me at the back, and we're wheeling it across in the middle of the traffic like a Chinese buggy or whatever you call them.
Oh, yeah.
And I collected all these bits and pieces because up there was T-models lying in the ground, and you could go anywhere and find a cowl or a seat or a bonnet, whatever you wanted. I put all these parts together, and then at the end of the year I informed my dad that I had to bring him home. Well, gee whiz, I had to take a ute and a trailer up there to collect all the bits. I just started putting things together and playing with them and experimenting, and I talked my father into buying a welder because we had to get tools. I didn't have tools.
Yeah.
So I convinced him that I could make gates for the farm.
Yeah. Very smart at a young age.
Yeah, I had it all worked out. And he bought a welder, and then I started digging a pit in the middle of one of his sheds. I dug a pit so I could work underneath the car.
By hand, with a shovel?
Yeah, no, just by hand. So we gradually started putting bits together from pictures.
Yeah.
And then the guys in Shepparton heard about this bloke in Stanhope that was building these cars. And one guy that was a fair bit older than me came over and looked at what I'd done, and he said, "Would you sell me that?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I suppose." And that was my first sale. I sold him the chassis, and I had a front end sitting under it, and there's pictures of it in the book.
Yeah.
And I had the steering hooked up, I think, and he took that away, and I thought, oh, okay.
Now, you're 16, you're self-taught, but you've got this idea that you can do things, weld and just teach yourself, and then better it already at such a young age. And, it's fair to say that you couldn't read or write when you were a young fella either, because school wasn't really your forte.
I still can't.
But even still, you couldn't read or write, but your brain to work out from an engineering perspective is unique in itself.
Well,
and because that set you up for the rest of your life, just tinkering away with that and spark something with you.
Well, it was the only thing I understood.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the rest of life in general.
Yeah.
My father couldn't come to grips with what I was doing. There was quite a lot of argument went on because I was working on the farm during the day and working on these hot rods all night.
Yeah.
I used to only go to bed every second night because I was so keen to have it. And then when I met up with the guys from Castlemaine that used to go from Castlemaine to Shepparton Auto Wreckers was the place to be.
Yeah.
And they used to call in at my place, and eventually I managed to find my way over to Castlemaine, where I found those other guys thought the same as me.
Yeah.
Because for a long time I thought I'm the only bloody one doing this. What's going on? Why am I so different, I thought there was something wrong with me, but well, there probably was. But the scene certainly changed once I worked out that there was other people that were interested too.
Okay, Rod. Now, one of the most fascinating cars that I think you've built is this Warman. And the reason behind that is because obviously this was in recognition of your pa, who actually really gave you the confidence to move forward in looking at and building cars and hot rods.
Yeah, well, his name was Ray Warman, and as a young child we used to go to his place, and on the mantelpiece was sitting this model of the car.
Oh, yeah.
And it used to fascinate me because I knew there was nothing like I'd seen. I was only 9 or 10 or something. I'd seen cars driving around and there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, was that a real car? And he would never let me touch it because of obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And it just fascinated me, absolutely fascinated me, and I think, well, how wild is that? Look at
Yeah.
the length of the bonnet and
Mm.
that. And I always noticed that his cars were slightly different. He had wood rim steering wheels. He'd have wheel trims, or he'd have wire wheels on them.
Yeah.
And they were always spotlessly clean, and he'd have a chrome tip on the exhaust and things that stood in my mind. I'm thinking that's not normal. And when he passed away, I made sure that I grabbed hold of this
Model?
but he always had a good word for me. When I was building the cars at night and day, he'd come over and look, oh yeah, you're making progress here. He would inspire me on.
Yeah.
It's always been in the back of my mind to build him something.
Yeah.
And I go to shows and I walk around and I look at cars, and I looked at the Packard and I thought, that's it. That's the car, you've got to base it on Packard.
Okay.
So that's what the chassis is. It's a Packard chassis.
Yeah.
It's a limousine Packard, which is longer than
Yeah.
a standard. Then we added 18 inches into it just for good measure. But what good is it without a real man's engine?
Wow. And what's in this? I mean, we're talking the piece of resistance. We're talking about Rolls Royce.
This is 1,650 cubic inches. The motor itself was brand new. It was still covered in grease from the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
It's a spare engine for a Centurion Army tank. But I'm quite pleased with it. It's got a beautiful grille made out of German silver.
Mm-hmm.
That was how we started. The people say, how do you start something like this? Well, that's how I started. I was looking through a book, and that grille is exactly the same shape, only bigger as a Studebaker.
Oh. Okay, Rod, sitting behind us is a 1937 Roadster utility. Now, I didn't think that Roadsters came out with utilities.
Yes, they did, and 1938 was the last one.
Yeah.
They started way back in the days of A models, so they were a very low production run, but the 1937 was considered the ugly duckling, and 38 was considered the worst one, the mother of it.
Oh, mother and ugly duckling.
Yeah, and the story on this particular car is it was for sale for ages. It was on the side of the road on the way up to the Narrandera, and it never sold. And I could never work out why. I didn't see it, but
Yeah.
I could never work out why nobody would have bought it. And when it came up for sale in Ballarat, I thought, geez, I'll buy that. I said, there's none around. I don't know of any others. And even today, I can only count for 5. We put some decent sized rubber under the rear. This was back in the days when not that many people did tubbing.
Yeah.
And we'll put an independent front end in it, so we put a Cortina front end in it. It's independent front end, so it rides really nice. It's not the old beam axle like they normally have. We chopped the windscreen just a fraction to make it look a little bit neater. We took the outside door handles off,
Yeah.
and we thought, now what can we put into this that's going to make it stand out? And I heard about this 427 aluminium Chev. They were a very, very limited production in Corvettes.
Yeah.
And I heard about one for sale over in Hong Kong,
Of all places.
of all places. And anyway, to cut a long story short, we got the aluminium engine into Australia, and we built it up with 4 Weber carburettors. We thought that's different.
Yeah.
We put a Doug Nash 5-speed behind it, 9-inch diff, and we thought, what's the colour scheme? We thought we've got to have something that stands out. So we chose this magenta colour, and that's the colour of the Chrysler Chargers
Yeah.
used.
Mm.
So it's probably one of the, well, it is the rarest car that I've got. And there's another one, believe it or not, in Castlemaine,
Of all places.
of all places.
Yeah. Do you know who owns that?
Yeah, young Henderson.
All right. And you haven't tried to buy it off him?
No, I don't want another one. I've got enough problems trying to wash what I've got.
Fair enough. You've been in hot rodding for a hell of a long time. You've accomplished so much, but you can't stop. You're in retirement, but here we have a 5-window 32 with a 392 engine in it. So is this going to be, first of all, why are you doing this?
I've never built a 5-window coupe in a 32, and I like them. I reckon they're the best looking body that Ford ever made, ever.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me that I'm getting to the point where I need a little bit of comfort. You drive the Roadster around, you freeze to death. Everything's frozen solid, and you don't enjoy it when the rain's belting in on top of you.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll build a coupe, but I'll try and do a few features that no one else has done. There's a lot of things in this car that the normal hot rodder's never going to pick up. The things like what you see here.
Yeah.
These are what I was talking about before. Everything that Ford made is beautiful.
Yeah.
Look at these brackets that they made. How nice is that? Now that's a standard bracket from an A model Ford truck.
Yeah.
Off the mechanical brake linkage. So I've used it to hold the brake pipe.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fraction wider than the normal brackets that they use. So the spring's got to be a bit wider to suit. I decided that I'd like to put coilovers on the front. I've never seen coilovers on the front of a hot rod before.
Yeah.
So we found these nice motorbike shock absorbers. The chassis was built 4 inches longer than standard so that everything's not crammed up in there.
Yeah.
You've got room to move. You've got room to put fans and things in. The headlight brackets we made a pattern and we cast them. The brake lines are all concealed. We used the Turbo 400 transmission for the first time. I've never used an automatic in a hot rod before.
Yeah. Why'd you go down that path?
Just to make it a bit easier for the wife to drive, and also this gives you a bit more room around the clutch and brake pedal, because when you've got a clutch pedal in there, there's not much room.
Yeah, yeah.
I decided that I wouldn't go the other way. I'd put in the original roof type material to make it look like Henry Ford had made it.
Mm-hmm.
We put the cowl vent in.
Yep.
It's open, so let cold air in.
Come in. Yep.
Even though this is a glass body,
Mm-hmm.
that part is all steel. It's glassed in. I decided to use mud guards that are basically onto the body and with shape in them.
Yes.
Like different.
Gives a bit of style, yeah.
Bit of style, yeah. I decided to use the door hinges and make a highlight of them,
Mm-hmm.
because most people put concealed.
Yep, make it flush.
Mhm.
Will this be your last build, or will you build another car after this?
No, I've got no more plans to build another one, and to tell you the truth, they're getting too dear to build.
Yeah, even all cars are getting pretty pricey, aren't they?
They're getting out of control, and I could build a couple more cars that in my mind.
So you've already got ideas of those cars that you want to do.
Yeah, but they're going to stay there, up in there. People that retire suddenly find there's nothing to do and they fall over.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to keep your mind and body active.
That's right. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm hoping that I can live a long and what do you call it?
Happy life.
Happy life.
Yeah. All right, Rod. we've spent the day with you and we've learned a lot more about you than what I did beforehand. I want to say that it's been an honour for me to actually come over here and to talk to you about, I suppose, your life's history in hot rodding, not only here in Australia but also internationally as well, and the accolades that you've done. But that's only through the hard work that you've done and sheer determination to push boundaries all the way through your life. And that's inspirational for a whole lot of people. So I want to say thank you very much for being on Bumper to Bumper. It's been my honour to actually interview you and to see your museum of cars that you've built over your lifetime is just phenomenal. So well done and thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed your company today, and I hope it's all been worthwhile for you. But I still want to say that I've had help.
Tune in to Bumper. Oh yeah. Do you have the sickness? Do you have the disease? Does a set of white wall tires bring you to your knees? You've had so many old cars, you're never satisfied. And if it came to choose just one, you never could decide. Bumper to bumper, we love them old cars. Be it Ford or GM or be it a Mopar. People, power and passion, you know that is our deal. So tune into our TV show with Rusty at the wheel. Bumper to bumper, we love them old cars. Be it Ford or GM or be it a Mopar. People, power and passion, you know that is our deal. So tune into our TV show